Okay, so we're going to be adding and subtracting like fractions. And when I say fractions, that's going to include mixed numbers. Okay, what are mixed numbers, just so we can review that? A mixed number is a whole number with a fraction. Very good. Okay, so let's make sure we all remember the two parts of a fraction. So the top is called the numerator, and the bottom is called the denominator. I don't really mind people saying bottom number and top number, but when I list the steps in just a second, we're going to use the actual names, okay? What do you know about adding and subtracting fractions already that you remember? Always for adding and subtracting. What about multiplying and dividing? No. All right, so that's an important thing. Is that what you were going to say too? All right, so to add or subtract, denominators must be the same. To add or subtract, denominators must be the same. Today, this lesson, they're all going to be the same, so it makes it nice. It's when they're different that it takes a lot of time. And unfortunately, we're going to do that tomorrow, but we need to practice that, okay? So if you were telling someone that has never added fractions before how to do it, what would you say the steps are? What would be the first thing that you would do? Yep. Okay, and now what? So if I gave the problem 2 over 9 plus 4 over 9, explain to me how you would do that problem. Okay, so add or subtract, right? Because we want to say it for any problem. Add or subtract numerator. So we will always want to be very careful to pay attention to if it's adding or subtracting, okay? So don't get in a hurry and add on everything or subtract on everything. So 2 plus 4 is 6. What's the second thing? So do we add the denominators or keep the denominator? Keep the denominator the same. So that's a mistake that a lot of people make that completely forget how to do fractions. They want to just add on top, add on bottom. So keep same denominator. I'm going to abbreviate. You can abbreviate also. Again, they're your notes, so as long as you understand them. The last step, sometimes you don't have to do the last step, sometimes you do. What do you think the last step is? Simplify. So again, sometimes you can simplify, sometimes you can't. This problem, can we simplify? Yes, what is it? 2/3. They can both be divided by 3. So since that's my final answer, I'm going to circle it or box it, whichever you prefer. We all remember how to do that, right? Okay, so there's going to be adding ones, there's going to be subtracting ones. I don't think that we need really any more practice with just fractions, correct? Let's move on to mixed numbers then, because mixed numbers, it gets a little bit more complicated. For instance, if I had the problem there's 2 methods that you can use, and I'm going to let you choose which method you want to do, because everyone kind of has a personal preference. There's 2 methods that you could use, though. What's one method? What's one way that you could do this? Very good. So what's nice about her method, she said, was convert the mixed number into an improper fraction. That method always works, whether it's adding or subtracting, no matter what the fractions are. Okay, so method 1, convert to improper fractions. Raise your hand if that's the way you would have done it. About a third of the class. All right, I want everyone to review this way, even if this was not your preferred way. Let's review this way. So let's review, everyone, how to change a mixed number into an improper fraction. How do we do that? Which is 8 plus 3. Good. So a lot of you can just do that in your head, but I kind of showed visually what you were doing in your head. Taking the denominator times the whole number, which is 8, and then adding on the numerator, which is 11. And then you keep that same denominator. What would 4 3/4 give you? 4 times 4 plus 3. So, okay. Now we follow those same steps that we just wrote down, those 3 steps. Add them, keep it, simplify it. How do we simplify improper fraction? Okay, so you're thinking about how many times 4 can go into 30. 4 can go into 30. How many times? 4 can go into 30 7 times. And 4 times 7 is what? 28. So how many would be left over? 2 would be left over, right? So 4 times 7 is 28. 2 would be left over. And 7 2/4 is 7.5. Some people like to change this to 15 over 2 first. That's fine. If you want to divide them both by 2 and get 15 over 2 and then change 15 over 2 to 7.5, it works the same way. All right, so that's method 1. Let's talk about method 2. Looked like a lot of the class liked method 2 better. So same problem. We already know what the answer is, obviously. Method 2. I'm going to let you choose which method you prefer. Who wants to explain method 2? All right, go ahead. All right, so add, I'm going to put add or subtract whole numbers. So 2 plus 4 is 6. So add or subtract fractions. So that would be what? Well, at first it would be this, right? 3/4 plus 3/4 is 6/4. Now what? Okay, so 6/4 is what? 1 2/4, which is 1 1/2. And now what? All right, so then we have to do our 6 and our 1 1/2, so 7 1/2. Now, this method works for people that are good with fractions. If you're not good with fractions, this is like, woo. 1 second, please. So again, this works good for people that are good with fractions. So I would think probably most of you are pretty decent with fractions, but you know you. If you're someone that fractions are just, you mess up all the time, then this might not be the method that you want to use, because you have to be really comfortable with this regrouping part, okay? Again, I'm going to call that regrouping. Regroup / simplify. And really this method is not that bad when you are adding, but when you're subtracting, it can get a little difficult. Let's do one of them that's difficult using this method, subtracting, and then I think we'll be good unless you want to do more. Do you think, or how are we feeling? By thumbs, this is, I feel pretty good with this. This is, this is, I don't feel good. Okay, so I either have up or sideways, so I didn't see any downs. That makes me feel pretty good. All right. So one of them that is really hard to do the method that second method is this one. Before we even do it, what makes this difficult to use that second method on? Good. So we could do 5 minus 3, no problem, 2. But when we do 1/4 minus 3/4, we can't do that. That's going to give us a negative. So you can still use that method, but there's a whole other thing you have to do here. Does anyone know what that thing is? You have to borrow. So this completely, people that are bad with fractions, this completely blows their mind. So if you're going to borrow, so this is going to become a 4, and we're borrowing one whole thing. So we can write 5/5, 6/6, 7/7, all those things equal 1, okay? But I'm going to use 4/4 because that is my common denominator, okay? So 4 and 4/4, that is like a 4 and a 1, so I'm just renaming this 5. And I'm going to add this 4 and 4/4 to this 1/4, so now I have 4 and 5/4. Raise your hand if you've seen that before. Okay, most of you, that's good. Now we can do this. So 4 minus 3 is 1. 5/4 minus 3/4, 2/4, and we're finished. If you don't feel comfortable doing this method, then you use method 1, which is turn on 2 improper fractions, and that always works, okay? Whether it's adding or subtracting, if you turn it into an improper fraction first, it'll always work. All right, so I'm going to give you your assignment because I want you to have time to start on it, and that'll give you time to ask me questions or ask each other questions, okay? Okay.